Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happens when one of Hollywood's most grounded actors walks onto a talk show expecting a calm conversation, only to realize he stepped straight into a storm someone else has been waiting to unleash? What you're about to see is the moment Matt Damon went from smiling guest to stunned target in front of millions. The View had planned a chat about storytelling. What they got was a clash that spun so far out of control that Matt stood up, pulled off his mic, and walked out while the audience sat frozen. It started with a simple question about climax changes in films, but Joy Behar pushed harder, turning a debate into a confrontation that felt more personal than professional. Even Whoopi and Ana could sense the temperature rising, but by the time they stepped in, the damage was already done. Matt had reached his limit, and the studio had no idea how to handle what came next. This wasn't a disagreement. This was a live-fire meltdown that shook the table and sent social media into a frenzy. Make sure you're subscribed and drop your thoughts below. Whose side are you on?
Matt walked onto the set of The View with the easy confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. The audience rose in a warm wave of applause, cheering louder when he gave that familiar half-smile in a quick wave. He looked relaxed. He had a new film coming out, he was proud of it, and this was supposed to be the kind of appearance you breeze through before lunch. Whoopi greeted him with open arms, giving him a quick hug before he even reached his seat. "Look at this guy," she said, grinning. "Movie star by day, regular dad by night." Matt chuckled. "That's pretty much my whole identity now. School runs, laundry, trying to get teenagers out of bed." The audience laughed. The mood was light. Sarah leaned in with an easy smile. "We've got to start with the big one," she said. "Your movie is already getting buzz for its structure. People are talking about the storytelling choices you made, especially your approach to the climax." Matt nodded. "Yeah, we wanted to try something different. Not everything needs to be bigger and louder. Sometimes the tension comes from restraint." Whoopi raised her brows. "And you've said publicly you're not a big fan of studios forcing changes to climaxes just to keep test audiences happy, right?" "That's true. When you start shaping endings based on who complains the loudest, you lose the honesty of the story. Not every payoff has to be explosive. Some endings are meant to leave you thinking." Joy jumped in with a teasing tone. "So you're saying the audience is wrong?" He laughed lightly. "No, not wrong. I'm saying they're used to a certain rhythm because studios train them to expect it. But a climax shouldn't be changed just because someone wants more fireworks." The energy stayed warm, even playful. Joy wasn't pushing yet. She twirled a pen between her fingers and said, "Well, I like fireworks. I'm a Jersey girl. If the ending doesn't pop, I feel cheated." "Fair enough. But sometimes a quiet ending hits harder than any explosion." Ana nodded. "I actually agree with you. Some stories earn subtlety." Matt smiled, appreciative. The back and forth felt friendly. The studio lights gave the whole set a soft glow, and the crowd responded to each exchange with chuckles and little murmurs of support. It felt like everyone was settling in for a balanced conversation. Whoopi shifted forward in her chair. "One thing I like about your work is that you don't pander. You tell the truth of the characters. That's the goal. You try to respect the story. You try to respect the audience, too, even if the ending isn't the one they expect." Joy leaned back, arms crossed loosely, her smile still there, but tighter. "So if your kid told you the climax needed more energy, would you ignore them because you're the artist?" Matt smiled, but this time just a little slower. He didn't feel attacked yet, but the edge was noticeable. "I'd listen, but at the end of the day, I have to make the choice that feels true." The audience murmured, a few nods, a few raised brows, the first tiny crack in the mood. No one knew it yet, but this was the moment things quietly began to shift. The shift was subtle at first, but everyone on set felt it. Joy sat a little straighter, chin lifted, eyes locked on Matt like she was lining up her next swing. The friendly banter faded, replaced by a sharper curiosity that didn't feel as harmless as before. "So let me ask you something real," Joy said, leaning forward. "If a climax isn't working for the majority of the audience, why shouldn't it be changed? People pay good money to be entertained. Don't they deserve an ending that actually satisfies them?" Matt blinked, surprised. They deserve honesty. A story shouldn't bend just because someone wants a louder finish. Joy scoffed. Honesty? Matt, you make movies, not documentaries for film school students. A few gasps rippled through the crowd. Whoopi raised her brows but didn't intervene yet. She was watching both of them, sensing where this was heading. Matt kept his tone calm. I make stories, and stories fall apart when you distort their purpose to please everyone. You can't chase approval and tell the truth at the same time. Joy smirked, tilting her head. Or maybe some filmmakers hide behind artistic integrity to avoid admitting when something just isn't landing. Sarah tried to lighten the mood. Let's rewind a bit. Matt, have you ever had a studio push you to change a climax, even when you didn't agree? Matt nodded, grateful for the pivot. More times than I can count. On one film, the original ending tested low because people didn't like that the hero didn't win. The studio wanted a last-minute victory scene. It didn't make any sense. We fought it for weeks. Ana leaned forward. And what happened? We compromised. We kept the ending we believed in. And years later, it's the part fans still talk about. The audience clapped lightly, but Joy wasn't done. She cut in before Whoopi could speak. So because it worked out once, you think every audience should sit through a dull climax to satisfy a director's ego? Matt's posture shifted. His shoulders squared. That's not what I said. I'm talking about storytelling. You're turning this into something else. No, Joy said, voice sharpening. I'm turning it into what people actually care about. If a climax falls flat, the movie fails, period. A few murmurs rolled through the crowd. Someone in the back whispered, "Wow." Another audience member clapped in support of Joy, which only made the atmosphere more uneven. Whoopi held up a hand. All right, let's slow down. We're not here to attack anybody. But Joy kept going. He's acting like audiences are too simple to understand subtlety. That's not what I think, Matt said, trying to keep his tone steady. I think audiences are smarter than studios give them credit for, and smarter than... He stopped himself. The crowd leaned in. Joy raised her brow. Smarter than what? Smarter than me? Several people in the audience gasped, some covering their mouths. Cameras shifted. A producer lifted a hand to signal the operators to stay wide. Matt exhaled slowly. Joy, I'm saying people deserve authenticity. You're making it sound like entertainment should be engineered to avoid difficult reactions. Well, yeah, Joy said. It's called giving people what they want. Matt shook his head. Then it stops being art. But maybe art should meet audiences halfway instead of lecturing them. That's not what storytelling is. Joy fired back. Then maybe you're out of touch with what regular viewers expect. This time the reaction was immediate. A wave of sharp gasps rattled across the studio. Someone in the back muttered, "Wow, that was too far." Another audience member clapped in support of Joy, which only made the atmosphere more uneven. Whoopi cut in, firm. Nobody here is out of touch. Let's keep this respectful. Joy didn't look away from Matt. I'm just saying, if you want people to show up, you have to consider what they enjoy. Not everything needs to be a quiet, thoughtful moment. Sometimes people want a thrill. And sometimes they want truth. Sarah stepped in again. Matt, you've said before you sometimes fight with executives about these things. Does it feel like you're constantly trying to protect the story from outside opinions? Honestly, yes, he said. There's pressure everywhere. Test audiences, marketing teams, investors. Everyone wants a say. And every time you give up a piece of the story, you lose something real. Joy snapped. Or maybe you're too precious about your ideas. His jaw tightened. Or maybe I care about the work. Is that a problem? The studio went silent. Whoopi sighed, preparing to intervene again, but the spark had already caught. The tone had changed from discussion to challenge. Matt wasn't smiling anymore. Joy wasn't hiding her irritation. and the audience sat frozen between them, not sure whose side they were supposed to take. The first real fire had broken out, and everyone could feel the temperature rising.
The studio air felt tight, like everyone had taken a breath they couldn't quite release. Joy leaned back with an expression that looked almost casual, but there was nothing relaxed about her eyes. She watched Matt the way someone watches a chessboard, waiting for the next careless move. And then she pushed the conversation into dangerous territory. "You know what I think the real issue is?" she said. "You can afford to defend these quiet endings. You live in a world where you get final cut, where your name alone sells tickets. Most filmmakers don't have that luxury. You come from a place of privilege." The audience reacted instantly. A low wave of gasps rolled across the room. Whoopi's head snapped toward Joy. Anna's eyes widened. Sarah's brows shot up. Matt went still. Not angry yet, just stunned. "Privilege?" he repeated. "That's what you think this is about?" Joy shrugged. "Well, yeah. When you're protected, it's easy to preach about artistic purity." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His gaze locked on her, steady but wounded. "I didn't start with Final Cut. I earned that over decades. I've fought harder than you know to keep stories honest." Joy waved a hand. "Sure, but you're still speaking from the top of the mountain. You're not the one getting told to change an ending because some focus group in Ohio got bored." Whoopi shook her head. "Joy, that's not fair." But Matt wasn't looking at Whoopi. His focus stayed on Joy. "I've been exactly in that position. You're assuming things you don't understand." Ana stepped in gently. "Maybe we should let him explain, give him space to tell his side." Sarah nodded, turning toward Matt. "You mentioned earlier you had to fight for an ending once. Can you tell us what happened, just so viewers understand where this passion is coming from?" He hesitated at first, swallowing. The tension softened just a little as he searched for the words. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Okay." The studio fell silent. Even the audience seemed to sense something personal about to surface. "There was a film early in my career. Small budget, nobody expected it to do anything. But the story meant everything to me. The ending was quiet, reflective. No big victory scene, no big music cue, just a moment of truth between two characters who had been lying to themselves the whole time." He paused, looking down at his hands before lifting his eyes again. "And the studio hated it. Hated it. They said people wanted something triumphant. They wanted noise. They wanted smiles. But that wasn't real. That wasn't what the film was about. I fought them for weeks. I thought I was going to get fired." The crowd listened, still and focused. "And one night," Matt said, voice slower now, "I got a letter from a woman who had been part of the early screening. She told me that quiet ending, just two people finally telling the truth, helped her confront her own life. She said it saved her marriage, that it gave her clarity she didn't expect." A hush fell over the entire studio. Even Joy didn't speak. "That's when I realized sometimes a climax doesn't need to explode. Sometimes it needs to whisper, and that whisper can hit harder than anything else." He sat back, the weight of the memory settling in the space between them. Sarah touched her heart. "That's powerful." Ana nodded. "That's the point you've been trying to make." But the silence didn't last. Joy snorted softly. The audience reacted with a harsh mix of gasps and groans. Someone whispered, "Oh, come on." Matt's head snapped toward her. "What's so funny?" Joy lifted her hands. "I'm not saying your story isn't touching. I'm sure that woman appreciated it. But one emotional letter doesn't outweigh the fact that audiences, in general, want climaxes that land, not ones that put them to sleep." A scattered chorus of "ooh" rippled through the crowd. Whoopi shook her head. "Joy, No, let her finish, Matt said, voice tightening. You keep talking like you're protecting some sacred art form, but maybe you're just disconnected from what regular people enjoy. That did it. Matt's composure cracked. His voice rose, still controlled, but with a strain that made the whole room lean back. You don't get to decide what regular people connect with. You don't speak for them, and you don't get to dismiss someone's pain because it doesn't fit your idea of entertainment. The audience reacted loudly. Some clapped for him, others booed joy. The room split in half, energy sharp and restless. Whoopi tried again. Matt, Joy, let's take a breath here. But no one was breathing. Joy fired back. I'm not saying dismissing anything. I'm saying movies aren't therapy sessions. They're entertainment. They're stories, Matt snapped. And stories help people make sense of their lives. You think that's nothing? You think a climax should just be noise and glitter? Sometimes, yes, Joy shot back. Sometimes that's what people come for. And sometimes you underestimate them so much you turn art into a product. Joy pointed a finger at him. And sometimes you talk like someone who doesn't live in the real world. The audience erupted again. Shouts, claps, gasps, scattered booing. The tension didn't just simmer now. It surged, hot and messy, with both sides fully locked in. The emotional flashpoint had arrived, and there was no going back.
Joy leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes narrowed with the kind of confidence that only comes from believing you've won the argument. The studio's energy had gone from tense to volatile. Every breath felt like it could set off another spark. Producers hovered off camera, headsets pressed tight, ready for the worst, but not yet sure if they should intervene. Then, Joy went for the line that would break the show wide open. You know what your problem is, Matt? She said, voice steady, almost calm. You sit there lecturing people who actually watch movies. Real people, not critics, not insiders. You think you're educating the public, but really you're just talking down to them. The audience reacted like a single body hit with cold water. Gasps shot across the room. Someone in the front row muttered, "Oh no." Another voice whispered, "She didn't just say that." Matt's expression changed in an instant. Whatever patience he had left evaporated. His jaw tightened, his eyes went flat and tired, like he'd been hit in a way he didn't expect. "Lecturing?" he said slowly. "That's what you think I'm doing here?" Joy shrugged unapologetically. "I think that's what a lot of people see." He stared at her for a full second. Then he stood. The sudden movement made the cameras jolt. A producer waved frantically for a wide shot. Whoopi reached out instinctively, her hand landing on the edge of his sleeve. "Matt, hold on," she said. "Sit for a second. We can cool this down." But Matt was already shaking his head. He reached up and unclipped his mic pack with shaking hands. The studio fell into instant silence, the kind that feels too heavy for a morning show. "I came here for a conversation," he said, voice lower than before, almost level. "Not to be insulted." Joy lifted her palms. "Nobody insulted you." Matt looked at her like he couldn't believe she'd said that. "You took a personal shot, multiple times, and you're calling it honesty? Well, it is honesty. Maybe someone needs to say it." Whoopi stepped in again. "Joy, stop." But Joy wasn't stopping. Whether it was pride, adrenaline, or the need to win the moment, she leaned in with one more jab. "You're overreacting. If you can't handle a tough question, maybe that says more about you than me." A chorus of "no way" rolled from the crowd. A couple of audience members booed. One woman shook her head hard, mouthing, "No way." Matt didn't yell, he didn't curse, he didn't even raise his voice. He just gave a small, pained laugh like he'd seen this play out in some movie he never wanted to star in. "I respect everyone here," he said, "but this crossed a line." He set the mic on the table, gave a quick nod to Whoopi and the others, then took a step back. Whoopi stood too. "Matt, don't do this. We can step off camera for a second. Don't walk out." But he was already turning away. The audience gasped as he headed toward the backstage area, shoulders tight, steps hard and final. A few people clapped in support. Others sat stunned, hands over their mouths. Producers scrambled from both sides of the set, whispering urgent instructions into their headsets. Matt disappeared behind the curtain. Joy sat rigid, still trying to look composed. "I'm just being honest," she said into the awkward emptiness. Ana turned toward her, eyes wide with frustration. "There's honest joy, and then there's provoking someone to the point they feel attacked. You crossed that." Joy blinked. I asked questions. No, Ana said. You took shots. Sarah couldn't even speak. She just stared at the empty seat where Matt had been sitting seconds earlier. The studio was thick with shock. No music, no chatter, no recovery. Just the echo of Matt Damon's footsteps and the sudden realization that a morning segment had turned into a viral walk-off the entire country would be talking about by noon.
The studio stayed unnervingly still after Matt walked off. The empty chair beside Joy became the loudest thing on set. Producers tried signaling for a commercial break, but Whoopi lifted a hand and shook her head gently. She knew the audience needed a moment to breathe, to understand what had just unfolded in front of them. Whoopi sat forward, elbows on her knees, voice steady. Look, creativity is personal. You don't have to agree with someone's process, but you do have to respect where it comes from. We forget sometimes that people put a piece of themselves into their work. The audience nodded softly. The tension eased, but the conflict still hung in the air. Ana spoke next, choosing her words carefully. There's challenging a guest, she said, and then there's making them feel attacked. What happened here crossed that line. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't glare. She simply stated a truth the audience had already felt. Sarah added quietly, he came here for a conversation, not a fight. Her tone wasn't accusatory, just disappointed. Joy sat frozen for a moment, jaw tight. She finally said, I ask questions, that's my job. But even she sounded unsure now. A few audience members shifted in their seats. The bravado she showed minutes earlier had thinned. The room wasn't with her the way she expected. Backstage, the cameras caught a quick glimpse of Matt speaking with a producer. He looked shaken, frustrated, and done. I'm not going back out there, he said, pulling off the last of the mic tape. Not today. He waved off the apology offered to him, but he wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Tired in a way that made viewers feel the weight he'd been carrying through the debate. Within minutes, social media lit up. Clips of him standing, his mic hitting the table, and Joy's final jab flooded feeds. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Matt Damon walk-off. Hashtag Joy Behar clash. Hashtag The View meltdown. Some users defended Joy, claiming she was just asking hard questions. Others slammed her for pushing too far. The debate raged online even harder than it had on set. Back on stage, Whoopi finally wrapped the segment. She said, look, these conversations matter, but so does respect. We all have different ideas about how stories should be told, how they should end, what people want to see. There's no single right answer. But if we can't talk about it without tearing each other down, we lose what makes these conversations valuable. The audience gave a warm, cautious applause. Not loud, not cheerful, just supportive. As the lights dimmed on the shaken set, the aftershock still lingered. People would replay this moment for days. They'd argue about who was right, who went too far, and what it meant for the relationship between artists and audiences. Matt's walk-off became more than a viral moment. It became a reminder of how fragile the line is between honesty and hostility, and how fast a simple debate can become something deeper and more personal. And as the credits rolled, the question lingered. Was Matt standing up for storytelling, or walking away from a fight he never wanted? Whose side are you taking? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like if you believe celebrities should speak their truth, no matter the cost. Subscribe for more explosive celebrity confrontations every week.